Lighting right now. Here is the message we saw from the president-elect Donald Trump asking technology companies to not let TikTok stay dark and announcing he would extend a deadline to sell this U.S. business after the video platform suspended services stateside. Today, we have the CEO of TikTok attending President Donald Trump's inaugural events in Washington. And our next guest worries about how easy it will be for the app to land a deal to keep it safe in the U.S. For more context on that, let's bring in Jim Anderson. He's co-founder and CEO of Beacon Software. Jim, it's nice to see you.
Good to be here, John.
All right, let's talk a little bit more about your reaction to TikTok coming back online and also the message from President-elect Trump.
It's crazy, John. There's so many layers of this, and the juxtaposition with the inauguration is kind of crazy. So while we were on break, I opened up TikTok this morning and said, welcome back. Thanks for your patience. As a result of President Trump's efforts, they're specifically calling him out. Now, remember, the original TikTok ban, where did that come from? President Trump and his previous administration. Since then, a lot has happened, including a law that was passed bipartisan by Congress, signed into law by Joe Biden, who was president at the time, endorsed by the Supreme Court, at least the constitutionality of that. So while certainly we have a new president and a new tone, there's a lot of work to be done to actually get a lasting deal beyond, say, the first 90 days.
What do you think goes into the so-called art of the deal, if you will?
You know what? Money. This is, let's make no mistake. I was watching the crowd shots in the inauguration, and sort of mixed in with President Trump's friends and family were all the tech billionaires. Tim Cook, Sergey Brin, co-founder of Google, Elon Musk, Sundar Pichai, CEO of Google, Jeff Bezos, were all right there in the crowd shots. So this is a big tech story, and it cannot be a big tech story without being an AI story. So this is all wrapped up together. AI, big tech, politics, money, they all go together, and we're seeing it on display right now. Live on TV as the inauguration is happening.
Now, the president-elect talked about having a dialogue with China on this as well. When you try to sort of put the geopolitical pieces together, what comes out, Jim?
Tariffs, right? I mean, your previous guest was talking about the impact of tariffs. I think everybody in the global economy is certainly worried about that. President Trump is about the art of the deal. He's proposing deal, 50-50 split, joint venture. What does that mean? Nobody really knows. China, though, will ultimately have to sign off on this, right? ByteDance, which owns TikTok, is a Chinese-owned company. The Chinese government is going to have to agree to whatever settlement occurs here, and you have to believe that that's going to be tightly coupled. It's not just going to be TikTok and ByteDance. It's going to be TikTok, tariffs, and the other geopolitical issues. So that's another thing that leads me to believe it's not quite as simple as just issuing an executive order, buying yourself 90 days and saying, we're going to work out a deal. Maybe he will. He's a deal maker, and certainly you've got Elon Musk and others involved. But there's a lot of work to do, and this is probably going to get very complicated.
Speaking of a complicated connection of the dots, the Jeff Bezos-owned Washington Post has a piece out today where they say one of the first big tests for congressional Republicans is going to be how much they're willing to sign off on this idea of reversing the TikTok ban at the expense of national security, which obviously is a very important matter to them. So how do the congressional pieces of this play together, in your opinion?
Yeah, and that's a great point. It was incredibly bipartisan. I don't remember the exact vote count, but it was overwhelmingly passed by both branches of Congress. And then when it was signed into law, the TikTok ban or the forced divestiture. So there, and you see a lot of commentary that the national security risks have not gone away, and they really haven't. So the politics on Inauguration Day is one thing. President Trump being able to say, "Hey, I want to make a deal." The reality of making a deal, I think there are some people who have very legitimate concerns about China's role. The whole reason for the ban to begin with has not changed. That's the great irony, is the original concern that President Trump back in his first term articulated by wanting to ban it is exactly the same, if not worse, than it is now. So I think that's going to be, you're going to hear a lot more people talking about that. The question is, how much daylight are they willing to have between themselves and President Trump?
All right, we only have about a minute left, but would you say at the end of the day, even with all those moving parts, do you think it's possible that some kind of deal gets done and that it might involve a tech company in the U.S. or a tech leader from the U.S. in some way, shape, or form?
I do. I mean, there's hundreds of billions of dollars at stake here, right? We're not talking about a small application. And as you and I have talked about before, the most valuable real estate in the world is not New York, Hong Kong, London, Tokyo. It's this device right here, right? I mean, and TikTok as a master of consumer attention. We all spend an enormous amount of time on our phones. TikTok is particularly sophisticated at harnessing that. I can't believe that anybody, including the Chinese government, wants to see that just go away. So the economic incentives for a commercial deal are enormous. And I think if there can be some political compromises, tariffs, et cetera, can be reconciled to China's satisfaction, you will see a deal.